dilemma. It's within the idea that the state, and it has to be a developmentalist state, and it's not said clearly, but it's a socialist developmental state, will deal with the problem better. I just like to ask you that question. What is the notion, nature of political and social organization that can address the kind of sensitivity that you've spoken of and that Tina just spoke of?
These three questions from that side, Devdaji, and then shall we have one? Okay, then Arun Vidani. Yeah, then the answers and the next round.
I have two questions and one formulation. My formulation is that fundamentally you have raised the question of alternatives. Alternative civilization, in your talk, you have referred to alternative civilization, alternative technology, alternative productive forces. In your lecture, these are a few terms which give a clue to their understanding that the revolution as a whole, which you mentioned in your lecture, and with reference to a larger macro level statement that you have made, you have referred to three specific alternative arrangements, which are alternative civilization, alternative technology, alternative for production of forces, and alternative uniformity. It's very refreshing. And you have rightly made a plea for intervention. My question is this, while your analysis seems to be very attractive, what is the source of intervention? What are the instruments of intervention in a running train, which you have rightly mentioned? To repair a running train, what type of intervention is needed to repair a running train towards its catastrophe? That needs to be clarified a little more than merely a statement which is very alarming, realistic, and yet it doesn't take me very far into the understanding of alternatives, number one. Number two, the developing countries for the last 15 years and for the next 20 years have what's called a revolutionary expectation. They are moving towards certain kind of development in the light of the development which have taken place in the developed countries. In this historical context, Asia, where developing countries in Africa is looking towards development on the basis of these three which you are seeing alternatives. What are these countries? How will it appeal to them? The people of India, of these countries, are excited about the development tomorrow, and they have been impressed by whatever the wrongs and what are the inadequacies of the previous development. They see this as a model. Now to ask them at this time of their own process of development that we must think of alternative development may not be very acceptable to these countries who are in the process of development of the same model which has been brought to them. The way the historical context that you have raised and a humanistic context is a very relevant existential problem. But in a downright historical context of developing countries, how will you convince them? Or how will they be convinced? Not how, there's no question of you're convincing them. How will they be convinced about this model of alternative development right in the mainstream where they are attracted and they are looking forward to their prosperity in the light of this developmental model, however inadequate? The West has realized, as you have mentioned, realized inadequacy of development. Some of us in this part of the world also realizing, but rising expectations, this is a historical context which you need to relate to them. And the third, which is more important, is alternative civilization, alternative societies. All civilizations are a product of worldview. From a particular worldview emerges a culture. From that culture emerges civilization. Therefore, when you talk of changes in culture, cultural changes, don't you think it is necessary to examine the worldview which is implicit in this process. The worldview implicit in this process, you have not mentioned. That worldview which is implicit in this process has also to be examined. And if I were to hazard a certain kind of hypothesis, the worldview is twofold. First worldview is a concept of universe which takes that there is no dichotomy, man and nature, individual and society, they are in harmony with each other. There is a non-dualistic perspective. From that non-dualistic perspective, particular culture emerges, and from that non-dualistic culture emerges civilization. The whole Western civilization after the 15th and 16th century has been based on dualistic perception of the universe. And if you are talking about the civilization, is it not necessary to question the worldview which is non-dualistic from which it has to examine? These are a few questions which I thought I might raise with you in that setting. Thank you very much.
Devdutt is the name. Please introduce your name.
My name is Devdutt.
Next speaker. You have done, sir. Okay. Next round. Arunji, remember to raise your hand again. Yeah, now.
Okay.
All of it.
Let's try.
The order will be. Yeah.
Well, the questions are excellent. I'm not sure that I can answer all of them. That's right. James O'Connor is one of the pioneers of eco-socialism, and he wrote about this second contradiction of capitalism, between the contradiction between the force of production of capitalism and the conditions of production, which includes nature. Yeah? So this was an important contribution to raising the issue that there is an intrinsic contradiction between the logic of capitalism and the environment. Now, is the problem, how does Marx deal with the problem? For Marx, Marx wrote also about the unfettered development of the productive forces. That's true. There are a few texts by Marx and a few more even by Engels where this appears. But there are other texts by Marx where you see that he has some inkling about the problem of the destruction of the environment. Yeah? And particularly in Capital, yeah? About how the raise in productivity of the land is destroying the fertility of the land, etc. There's an interesting book by my friend John Foster Bellamy, about Marx ecology. He perhaps exaggerates a little bit the ecological moment in Marx, but he is right that there is some awareness. Yeah? But it's true that there is this tension in Marx between some moments where he is aware of this and other texts where he apparently has this illusion of an unfettered development. Now, more important than going through all the writings of Marx and to see his insights and his limitations is the basic question you raised. Should we keep to this idea of unfettered development of productive forces? And I think the answer has to be no. That means we have, which doesn't mean that there has to be no development of productive forces. Only it is not a quantitative development. Some forms of production which don't exist now, like solar energy, or exists very little, should be developed very much, and aeolic energy by the wind, etc. So this should be developed, and etc. So some aspects of the productive forces, the new productive forces, have to be developed. They don't exist now. Others have to be completely suppressed, like coal, oil, gas, nuclear energy, etc. Of course, not in a few weeks. It's a historical process of transition which will take years or perhaps even decades. So development of the productive forces, it's not an answer yes or no. Some things have to be developed which don't exist or are very very little, and others have to be eliminated completely, and others have to be reduced, like producing cars. We don't want to produce more and more and more cars, unlimited. No, we want to reduce significantly the production of cars, etc. So one has to qualify, to have a qualitative, differentiated view of what we want to develop and what we don't want to develop. Now, the question of technological fixes, green technology, etc. Yeah. Well, and Tina raised the issue. Well, the oil companies are very powerful. They block. Yeah. Well, it's not only the oil company. It's a whole complex which some Marxists call the fossil oligarchy. The fossil oligarchy, which is interesting because it refers to fossil energies, but also to the idea that these are dinosaurs of kind of era which we want to leave behind. So this fossil oligarchy includes oil, of course, but also coal, gas, nuclear energy, which is not fossil, but it's kind of complementary, and the car industry and everything which turns around the highway industry, etc. All this is a big complex which is extremely powerful. It's the heart of the capitalist system, and they efficiently block any substantial change. Yeah? That's a fact. Yeah. Now, what the capitalist governments are saying is that, okay, we have found some technological alternatives, and I can't go into the list of them. There are too many, but some of them are the so-called geoengineering, which have some completely crazy propositions, like sending to the atmosphere sulfur, or some say small pieces of
mirrors in space.
Mirrors to send the light, reflect the light, etc. So all kinds of crazy propositions. Fortunately, nobody dared to put it into practice. But this is a good example of technological fixes that capitalists are desperately trying to find, but obviously there are no solutions. More seriously, they, for instance, let's take the car, the car industry. They are aware that there is a problem, and that the public opinion is becoming aware that the individual car is a complete irrational system. So they are trying to save the system by replacing the car by the so-called electric car. Only that the electric energy, where does it come from? Either from nuclear energy, or from coal, or from oil, etc. So it's only transferring the problem a little bit. And then they say, okay, the electric car is not a solution, but we are going to replace gasoline by biofuels. That's the latest craze. And of various governments, not only the American, but also governments in Latin America, etc., Brazil. So, ethanol, etc. Now, first we have to say that the production of this ethanol by agriculture produces many gases. It's emission of gases by fertilizers, by pesticides, by transport, by trucks, etc., etc. So the carbon balance of these biofuels, it's not so different from gasoline, a little less, but the difference is not so big. First thing. The second thing is we see already that by using, for instance, corn for the cars instead of food, has raised the prices of corn. And in countries like Mexico, there have been food riots because people cannot buy their tortilla, which is the basis of the food in Mexico, because the corn prices went up. But in a broader perspective, if we would pretend to replace gasoline by biofuels, we would have to plant all the fertile surface of the planet with biofuels. So people would have no food, but the cars would be very happy with biofuel. So it's a completely irrational proposition. So, and we could go on and on. All these technological fixes are ideological mystifications to avoid, of course, the political issue, which is the system. But people in the global climate justice movement have understood why they say change the system, not the climate. Okay. And Tina says, of course, that we have to overcome this obsession of growth, absolutely, and change the consumption pattern, and which this implies also a change of lifestyle. I think I agree entirely with this. Only, I think we should be aware of a danger, which is that instead of thinking of a global transformation of society and of the whole productive system and of the production and consumption patterns and of the lifestyle, some people in some ecological movements, but also among bourgeois spokesmen like Al Gore, who is a nice person, but typical representative of bourgeois ecology, you would say the change is a question of lifestyle. So if you close your water tap, you won't waste water. If you change your electric bulbs, you will spare electric energy, etc., etc. And of course, we should close the water tap, and of course, we should change the tap, but that won't be able to stop this train, this deadly train of capitalist civilization. So we have to see the change in lifestyle as a part of this broad revolutionary process. And the change in the pattern of consumption is very difficult now. It's very difficult. But the moment we are able to limit first and then suppress advertisement, it will be much easier. Because we have to distinguish between real needs, which have to be satisfied, and artificial, false needs, which are created by the system's ideology and by advertisement. So once we suppress advertisement, the real needs of people will more and more come to the fore. And then it will be possible for people to change their lifestyle. Also, to change a lifestyle, we have to create material conditions. For instance, for people not to use the private car, we have to have public transportation, massive public transportation, and free of charge. Then we will have the material conditions for people ceasing progressively to use the car. So I think that there is a dialectical relation between changing the system and changing the lifestyle. They go together. That's the way I see it. Well, Jay's question. Yeah, you're absolutely right that the so-called, with inverted commas, existing socialism wasn't better than capitalism in relation to the environment. In fact, this system completely copied the whole productive apparatus and the technology and the productive system of the capital. It was a kind of mimicry, of imitation. Nothing, there was no attempt to look for some alternative. And in fact, one can raise the question: was this really socialism? My view, it was the beginning of a transition from capitalism to socialism, which stopped halfway and became a board. That's how I see it. So, in any case, we as socialists and Marxists, we had clearly to have a critical distance in relation to this experience, and of course think in terms of a radically different approach to what is a socialist construction. Now, which political organization can deal with these issues, I am unable to answer. Of course, it cannot be the state as it exists now, or the state as it exists now can perhaps be the instrument for some first measures, but in a more historical view of transformation, of course, we need different kinds of political organizations, which are not those of the states as we know them, but I couldn't tell you much more than that. It's something which we still have to discuss. I come now to the good. Yes, what are the instruments for intervention? How do we stop the running train? Very good question. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer.
No, I didn't say that. No, my question. I didn't say how to stop the running train. I didn't. My question was, how to remain in a running train during disaster?
Okay.
This is your question.
Yeah, okay. No, you're right.
It's not my question.
You're right. Okay. Now, I don't really have the answer, but what can one say? Again, in order to stop this suicidal trend of capitalist civilization, we need a radical transformation of society. Yes, and this can be done only by those who are the victims of the system, not by the rulers. They are not going to do it. And how we go in this direction, as I said, we have to start very humbly. Start with existing movements. Some of them local, some of them an indigenous community. I know more about Latin America because I myself, let's say an indigenous community in the Amazonian forest fighting against a multinational oil company which wants to go there and say, let us clean this forest and you will get wonderful jobs drilling oil. Yeah? And they say, no thank you. We live here for hundreds of years, we have our traditions, our community, and go out. Yeah? So this fight, which is going on in several areas in Latin America, is vital for this community, but also for humanity, because the Amazonian forest is the last tropical forest which still absorbs part of the carbon gases and therefore prevents global warming of running away. Yeah? So we are all interested in the struggle of this indigenous community. So we have to start from concrete struggles which are ecological and social, even if the people are not aware, they don't know what is ecology, they never heard the name, the word socialism. Yeah? But these are the first beginning steps of the movement to stop the crazy train. Yeah? Okay. That's all what I can to say. Yeah? We have to begin with concrete struggle. And of course, there is a room also for agitation, propaganda, teaching, writing articles, books, giving lectures like this one. Of course, this is useful. Yeah? Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. So there is a room of raising consciousness. But the most important thing for raising consciousness is people to organize and fight. Yeah? That's the most important. That's how I see it. Okay, but again, are these local struggles going to run together to a broader movement of revolutionary transformation? Are we able to build such a movement of radical change before the catastrophe arrives? I don't know. Maybe not. Huh? All I can say is that there's no guarantee that we are going to succeed. Maybe we won't. Maybe we will fail, and the train is going to the abyss, and we are going down with the train. So all I can say is that if it's a kind of conditional prophecy, if we are not able to organize a radical social and ecological transformation overcoming capitalism, the future is very bleak for humanity. Not for the planet. The planet is going to turn around very happily. Yeah? But humanity has a bleak future. That's all what I can say. Now, in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, or the global South, is excited about development and has the West as a model. Yeah, you're right. How can we convince them? Well, I think we have one first argument is that the Western model is not generalized, cannot be generalized. It's impossible for ecological reasons. As I said, some ecologists did the calculation in terms of primary resources, energy, even oil, etc., and they came to the conclusion, just for China, it would need 5 planets. So we have the first argument, it is a mystification. It's impossible. So humanity cannot imitate the American style of life. That's the first thing. Second thing is we can argue that a different model of development can exist. A different model of development, more adapted to the people's traditions, culture, etc. So, I don't know, in India you have popular traditions, cultural traditions. Gandhi represented a way of thinking about development, maybe. That's a starting point, I don't know. In Latin America, indigenous communities also represent different conceptions of development. So, this is one thing which can inspire people to think differently of how to develop. And also we can explain that a different model of development is an egalitarian model of development, while the present model is favoring an elite, to some extent a middle class, and is leaving out the majority of the population. This is very obvious in India, in Latin America, everywhere. So we have the proposition of a much more egalitarian and democratic model of development, which will produce different kinds of commodities which are useful for the people, etc. So I think we have all kinds of arguments in this ideological struggle, which is not easy, of course, because we have against us the ruling classes of the South and the fantastic ideological apparatus of the system. But I think we can root ourselves in people's local, popular, peasant, indigenous traditions to think of different models of alternatives of development. But again, are we going to convince the people? I don't know, perhaps. I'm more optimistic about convincing people in Latin America or Asia for an alternative model than convincing the US population to give up oil, coal, and private cars, etc. That will be more difficult. Okay. Alternative civilization, cultural change, different worldview. Yeah, I agree with you entirely. We need to build, I think eco-socialism implies a different worldview, a different approach to the relation between humanity and nature against Western civilization's dualism. I entirely agree. And again, here we have a lot to learn from pre-capitalist, pre-modern, pre-industrial cultures, which had in their worldview is exactly one worldview where human societies and nature are not opposed. So, and it's not by accident that I mentioned Cochabamba, because in this conference, what happened? These indigenous communities came with this idea of Mother Earth, which is not a scientific idea. It doesn't come neither from Marx or Engels, but the socialists were very happy. They said, yeah, of course, we have to fight for Mother Earth. So I think it's very important to develop a worldview opposed to this Western bourgeois capitalist conception of humanity exploiting nature, and let me quote Walter Benjamin, which is one of my favorite Marxist philosophers, who once wrote, capitalist civilization has a conception of the relation to nature which is destructive, which is murderous. He used the term murderous. While pre-capitalist, primitive communism, he used the term, societies, conceived of nature as a generous mother. Nature as a generous mother, which is almost the same words as used in the Cochabamba resolution. So I think there is room for a coming together of some heterodox Marxist thinking, as Walter Benjamin, and experiences like those of Latin America, indigenous people.
Yeah, okay. You and Arun Bidani, and then we come back to this Naga.
I see myself as a progressive, leftist, long-timer, Marxist, etc., etc. But I feel that you have to take me as a project, because somehow whatever you are saying and whatever I read and hear does not really touch me. I just ordered a new car before I went to India. This is a small city. And I know those people who wouldn't buy that much, wouldn't eat, but vegetarian, and many other things in their daily life, but somehow, maybe because of my age, I cannot really feel part of it. And on the other hand, I don't feel the catastrophe that you're talking about as a realistic one, as something on the agenda. No age, as long as I'm reading, I am reading also the catastrophic horizons, but I read, and perhaps with more happiness, those who say, no, it's not true, the world is not getting warmer, etc. And also those kind of scientists. So I think the basic, in order to feel this necessity that you're talking about, and you really talk from your guts, but in order to transfer it to my guts and other people like me, is first of all to really convince. I hope we don't have to have a nuclear bomb in order to know how bad it is, as we have already in history. But somehow, I don't know why it doesn't get to me. And I think this also is a gap we have to break.
Well, I'll be very brief because I think we've already covered much of the ground. I thought the main part, we almost shared the entire framework that you laid out for eco-socialism. The essential issue that, of course, troubles most of us who don't have any basic issues with that framework is really about the transition issues. The framework for transition is much more challenging, and and I see that you. I saw you try to respond to that, but I think we have to admit that we are rather unequal to at one level. The urgency is very clear. So it isn't like we have all the time in the world to have these things happen, the transformation happen. On the other hand, capitalism, though it's not as resilient as it's made out to be, because it's facing some unprecedented challenges. Even from its own logic, the financial crisis, which didn't come from any of the things we are talking about, but these are there looming in the horizon. So, I mean, the issue really is this transition issue. Capitalism is still there, and all the institutions and structures and processes in that kind of setup to try to see what the tasks of the what the frame, what the principles, what are the tasks of transition. I think that is my. I think you did try to address it, but I feel that that's where I think we need to focus.
two questions. Vikram, I have two questions, one small and one little longer. The first, the smaller one is, it's towards the end of your lecture you came around to the basic definition of what you mean by democratic, ecological socialist planning. That's a long name. So, what in this classification, what is your classification of people? You repeatedly quoted something as abstract as people. Could you define who you include in this category? And from thereafter move on to what is the ecological socialist category of class? That's one. The second and more important question is, in the framework of regionally democratic independence with regard to natural resources, how does one address questions of redistribution? Because in such a conception, one would already imagine that all societies have resources on which they can survive. Now, there are societies which lack water, there are societies which lack forest cover, etc., etc. How does one in such societies move from transfer resources from one to another? So, questions of redistribution. Thank you.
You had asked me, आपने पूछा।
लेकिन मेरे ज़्यादातर सवालों का जवाब मिल चुका है, लेकिन फिर भी मेरे
translate कर।
I could not be able to speak in English. जो कैपिटलिस्ट सिस्टम के थ्रू हम लोग एक नीड्स और डिजायर के थ्रू ट्रेन हो चुके हैं. We have trained through the in a capitalist system we have trained through the needs and desire. So I'm still skeptics about the how we जो नीड्स और डिजायर को हम नीड्स और डिजायर को हम सिंपल इस टर्म में नहीं देख सकते हैं कि कोई चीज हमें लेना है और उसका किस तरह से यूज करना है. ये सिंपल एक इंडिविजुअल के कंसर्न में ही नीड्स और डिजायर डिफाइंड नहीं हो पाता, क्योंकि एक सोशल फोर्स है वो भी आपके नीड्स और डिजायर को किसी तरह नीड्स और डिजायर को इफेक्ट करता है. तो आप जो हम बात करते हैं इको सोशलिज्म की या जो भी मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी जो भी सही है, लेकिन एक मास पीपल जो है वो हमारे इस दायरे से बहुत बाहर होता है. वो अपने आप को कैपिटलिस्ट सिस्टम के अकॉर्डिंगली ढाल चुका है. तो उसे उन नीड्स और डिजायर के संदर्भ में आप किस तरह से उन्हें अपने जो इको सोशलिस्ट मूवमेंट है उसमें ला पाएंगे? थैंक यू सर.
This was quite was what even I was thinking. What he's asking is that what we are talking about is modifying our needs and desires according to, like, ecologically, socially feasible standards, like different from how it is right now. But our needs and desires are not we individually do not decide that. So because our social, exactly, it's shaped by our social conditions. So what do we do about that? Like, for example, the thing that we're talking about is that the indigenous communities and the local communities will have to take the first step, because the state will not, because the state is essentially capitalist and they're not the ones who are going to make the first move. So the people who are indigenous, or for example, like I'll take the example of India. In India, there's something called Sanskritization, where the poor people or the people in villages, for example, they really want to ape what's happening in the cities. So that's the thing, social conditions determining your needs and desires. So how do we modify that?
Devdanji has a supplementary question. You wanted to? Okay, after. Is that okay? Two more, at least.
Mine is neither a comment nor a question. Mine is a formulation which I want, whether I am right or wrong, from you. Your lecture has given me an impression. I go back home for this understanding. I reflect about it, namely, that Marxism, as an instrument of analysis and change, is relevant for changes in the system within the technological framework which is today. But your debate, your presentation has raised another question in my mind, whether Marxism and Marxist analysis is relevant for civilizational changes also. This is a question which I go back home to reflect about.
Yeah.
Three short remarks. One is...
Just a moment. I can complete the previous notes.
sorry?
Half a moment.
Yeah, behind what Mikhail said, and what seems to be a common denominator, there is almost a theological assumption that we must save humanity. Why? If the humanity is not able to save itself, it is going to the abyss, we will go to the abyss, and that's all. And as you said, Mother Earth will continue to exist without us. Second is, I didn't like something you used when you were dividing between artificial needs and natural or basic needs. They are all constructed, and this is what we can learn precisely of all our needs. What seems to be the most natural and basic in one society could be perceived as totally artificial in another one. And this is one thing we can learn also from Cochabamba. The whole conception of needs, it's not only quantitative and to have only one car, only a bicycle instead of a car. It's much more than that. It's a whole civilization approach. How do we live and what are the kind of how and why, not why, but what is our place in our environment as human beings and as societies? And the last point is a reaction to what my dear friend Leah said before. When you know, it's too late. And she said, it's fascinating the way you ask, you describe your reaction. It's fascinating because you are obsessed by another totally different or apparently different situation. You were asking how a German in Berlin knew that it is time to leave, a Jew in Berlin with the rise of Nazism. How did he know that now it's time to leave? And in fact, usually too late. Usually too late. You still want to believe in normality. You still want to have business as usual. You still want to say, there may be a problem, but maybe not. And I think it's part of our humanity to be